Hey everybody, John Bryant. I am back. And let me know whether this is a good signal for you. So I'm the CEO and founder of Operation Hope, America's first and largest nonprofit financial services network for the poor, the underserved, the struggling class, the teetering class, folks with too much month at the end of their money, people like you and me. Better, okay, thank you. So the great part about where I live is it's built like a tank. The worst part about where I live is it's built like a tank, so I apologize. Some of you heard that I was exhausted, and that's why you didn't hear from me very much in the last few days, because the annual meeting last week with 3,500 delegates from over 50 countries was amazing. And thanks for everybody who participated in the meeting, and Yolanda and others who came to the public forum. Thank you very much for your participation. It was transformational, really, but it took everything out of me that I had, and it took me 5 days to recover. And you might have seen the Easter special I did with Ambassador Young. You should go back and watch that if you didn't. So my voice is a little raspy, so is Roland Martin's, who broadcasts live. God bless you, Roland. But it's because I've given you everything I have, and I love you. And I hope that love is felt by you. So let me jump into this. 700 credit score communities. I keep talking about it. I haven't explained it. Let me explain how you get there and why it's relevant to you. Half of all employers in the country today will check your credit before they hire you. Half. I've said it before, 700 credit score communities don't riot. Only 500 credit score communities riot. You've never seen a 700 credit score community riot in America's history of any race. But I haven't told you. I've inspired you, hopefully. I've given you some insights. I've given you a different way of looking at this movement from the suites and not just the streets. That this is about class and poverty, not race and the color line primarily. That if you deal with class, you get race for free. That a lot of issues we think are race-based are really about economics. And if you solve your economics, your race issue will go away or be mitigated or become irrelevant. I hope I've given you a good case for that, but I have not told you how to get there. So in our Hope Inside network, which we're modeling after the Freedmen's Bank of 1865, of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, Ambassador Young thinks our Frederick Douglass should be our patron saint for our movement, and I don't disagree. That they created this bank to teach free slaves about money, and then the bank failed in 1874 with 72,000 former slaves, at putting $52 million into that bank, which is about $100 billion today, which shows how industrious we really are. And I said that on the Joy Reid show this weekend. Go back and watch that show, how industrious we were. And that's why we went back and had the Treasury Department rename the Treasury Annex building the Freedmen's Bank building. Check that on your internet. Don't trust me. Don't listen to me. Google search the Freedmen's Bank building. You'll see that we worked to get the building renamed after 150 years in honor of former slaves. But that's not enough. We can't just be PhDs. We got to be PhDs too. And so we've opened up these Hope Inside locations, partnering with banks and credit unions and big box retailers and houses of faith. Today we got our first airline that will do Hope Inside. I'll hopefully announce that soon. We're in Whole Foods, we're in Hyatt hotels, we're in hospitals, we're in police departments, we're going into a major school district for their teachers. We've already mentioned we're in a bunch of banks, SunTrust Banks, Bank of the West, First Tennessee Banks, Synovus Bank, BB&T Bank. We're working with a couple of black-owned banks to go into black-owned banks. We're in Latino-owned banks, a Popular Community Bank, One West Bank, start getting into trouble, start naming names, Huntington Bank. And so the model is growing. A part of what everybody has to go through is 700 credit score communities. Antoinette said, yeah, it's crazy, this thing. I'm gonna get this fixed, I promise you. I got an IT guy who's gonna solve this for me. So what I was gonna say was, let me break down to you, when we have a client come into a Hope Inside, they must go through 700 credit score communities program first. What does that mean? Most people who are watching this has somebody in their family that has a 500 credit score, 550. Is it still freezing, Karen, or you can see it now? Are we good now? Is that Tabitha, we good now? So let me break down. If you have a 550 credit score and you walk into the bank is going to turn you down. I don't care whether you're white, black, orange, they're going to turn you down. But they're not going to turn you down right away. The law is so rigid with banks because of history of redlining, which is legitimate history of redlining. In other words, back 50 years ago, 60 years ago, they didn't lend in minority neighborhoods or to blacks and browns, and so they were forced by the federal government to take every application. Well, now the opposite is the problem, which is that you go take an application, you go to apply for something, they won't tell you when you really shouldn't apply because you won't be approved. They let you go through the entire process, and on the back end of that application, after you paid your appraisal fee, if it's in a mortgage application, they will then say, I'm sorry, Miss Jones, whatever, you're not approved. You've been denied, and then you say why, and then they'll tell you, well, you'll get a letter in the mail. How many of you know this story? You'll get a letter in the mail, and it tells you to go to the 3 credit bureaus to figure it out. Now, if you have low self-esteem, you're financially illiterate, you don't have these tools, you're not going to the credit bureaus. You're just frustrated. You figure the bank's just being dishonest and disreputable, and you're walking away from it. So here's what happens. The bank cannot tell you not to apply. So what they do now is they can walk you across the hall to us and say, look, talk to Operation Hope, because they've got more flexibility than we do. We pull your credit report. Here's the key. Here's the first myth. Because I make a lot of money, my credit is okay. That is incorrect. It is entirely possible that you making $25,000 a year, or somebody you know, or somebody making $48,000 a year has 100% better credit than the rapper who makes $1 million a year. Or the surgeon who makes $500,000 a year has horrible credit in comparison to the teacher who makes $28,000 a year. It has nothing to do with how much money you make. Did you hear that? Nothing. Second myth, the larger my credit limits, the better my credit. Not true. In fact, that could actually harm you too. It is better to have a 500 credit limit credit card with a $200 balance than it is to have a $100,000 credit limit credit card, and I've got one of those. Actually, it's got it actually has no limit on it. Well, anyway, it's a lot. But if you have a $100,000 credit limit balance, but you have a $90,000 balance, so you have a $100,000 credit limit, but you have a $90,000 balance, that's worse than if you have a $500 credit limit and a $200 balance. Let me know you understand what I'm saying. Just give me a thumbs up, and you understand that analogy. Otherwise, hey, Tiffany Greer, hello to you, and Karen signing in. Karen says lots of myths. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay, right, you do. Okay, so the first myth, making more money ensures you have, LaShawn says she understand. Alyssa, yes. Assume, Surette, yes, understood. If you wonder why I'm a little low energy, I'm scrimping, I'm exhausted from last week and my whole body's drained, so I'm just giving you what I got. My apologies. So if you're making more money that is not insured in any way, you've got better credit. This is complete equity. It has nothing to do with how much money you make. It has nothing to do with your credit limits. Here's what it does have to do with: credit payment patterns. If you pay your bills on time, you're going to have good credit. But even if you don't pay your bills on time, if you redeem yourself, you can get good credit. I'm going to get to that in a moment. So here's the third myth, that if you have, let's say, a default on your credit report, that somehow your credit is ruined. You must file bankruptcy. Not true. Do not file bankruptcy. Please do not file bankruptcy. And please do not go to one of these rip-off attorneys who will charge you $2,000, $4,000, $5,000 and tell you they're going to fix your credit. And what they're going to do is recommend to you that you file bankruptcy so you can, quote, wipe your credit clean. Yeah, you're wiping your credit clean, but you're adding a bankruptcy. Did you hear that? You're wiping your credit clean, but you're adding a bankruptcy. I'm going to repeat that. You're wiping your credit clean, but you're adding a bankruptcy. And bankruptcy is worse, much worse. It said that I'm walking away from every creditor that I own. Let me make sure you understand what I'm saying. Give me some love there. Do not file bankruptcy. Karen, yes. Payment history must be 100%, Brian says. Yeah, that's one of my counselors, one of my Hope Financial counselors. Yes, it of course, ideally should be 100%. My mother has an 855 credit score, much higher than mine. My credit score hovers between 700 and 750 because I'm an entrepreneur and I got a lot of things on my back. And that but follows what I'm saying. If you have a lot of responsibilities, you're an entrepreneur like me, so I don't just have my household expenses like you may have. I've got my credit card balance of $150,000 being carried because I'm paying for Operation Hope stuff every month. That, so it looks like I've got a crack habit or something. It looks like I've got a drug habit, when in reality I'm paying for my philanthropy, and I've got to explain that to my creditors. And I got to pay that down every month, and obviously I'm reimbursed for expenses that are proper, and I pay those expenses that are mine. Let me get back to the point. But my point is, everybody has credit issues, so don't think it's unique to you. I have a credit counselor, one of my Hope Financial counselors, Eric Clay, at Operation Hope in LA, who checks my credit every 3 months, and we go through it. So here's the biggest problem you have with credit. I want you to listen very carefully. It's called an error. If you have a 500 credit score or 550 credit score, you have an error on your credit report. I guarantee you. And if you didn't have an error, it's because you don't have a 550 credit score, because you've checked your credit. If you checked your credit, you wouldn't have an error, which means your credit score would be over 600. If your credit is below 600, and even sometimes below 620, I guarantee you have a credit error on your credit report. So what does that mean? You walk into a Hope Inside location. This is a true story. You've been denied by the bank. You're upset with the bank, even though the bank can't tell you why you'd be denied. By law, by regulation, by risk management and regulators, they cannot tell you why you'd be declined for credit. This is deep. But the bank refers you over to Operation Hope and says, look, can you please just go talk to those folks over there? They've got more flexibility than we do. They don't work for the bank. You come to talk to Eric Clay or Ms. Fife, one of our Hope counselors who's really good, or Crystal in Detroit, or one of our many counselors. You go talk to them, and they pull your credit with your permission. And they say, Mrs. Jones, is this yours item right here? You say, I don't know what that is, girl. I don't know what that, what's that? You're like, great, that's called an error. This is your silver right, not your civil right. This is your silver right. Repeat that to who's in your household, in your car right now. Your silver right. And it forces you to slow it down, to differentiate it from civil rights to silver rights, because it forces you to understand that to understand this language of money, to get the memo, my book coming out in September, the memo on money, you've got to slow down and understand a new language. This is the language of money. So yes, stop for a minute. This is your silver right, first lesson of civil rights. You have a right to challenge things on your credit report, and credit bureaus are nothing more than information-taking agencies. They don't have an opinion. They just take in crap and good information with the same value, and they put it all in your credit report, and it's up to you or your representative, my Hope Financial coaches, to challenge things on your credit report. Here's the law. If there's an error on your credit report, listen to me now, the credit bureaus must remove it within 30 days. Did you hear that? This is a good topic, Renard says. Help me to understand. Excellent, 756. Oh, this is their email address. I want to repeat that. Oh, it's your credit score. If the credit bureaus show a credit error on your report, they must remove it when challenged within 30 days. What does my team do? They challenge it for you. So with your permission, they write a letter to the credit bureaus. There is one in Raleigh, and I am in the college. Brian Hope, one of my counselors. So yeah, I met Brian, great guy. As one of my Hope Financial counselors in South Carolina now. Great story. Watch a video I did for him last week. Last week. So that we challenge the credit bureaus. We write a letter on your behalf saying this is not Mrs. Jones's. Please remove it. Within 30 days, unless they can confirm that, listen to me now, unless they can confirm that, they must remove it by law. So what happens 90% of the time? It gets removed. What happens to your credit report once that item gets removed, once my Hope Financial counselors challenge that on your behalf, which we do for free, by the way, not for a fee. Your credit score pops. Depending on who you are on your profile, it could pop between 20, 30, or 40 points. So if you have a credit score of 580 and you get a pop of 40 points, what does that put you now? 620. Here's the question. What does that do to your self-esteem? When your credit score goes up 40 points, what does that do to your faith in the banking system, in the credit system? What does it do to your faith, I know this sounds silly, in America, in free enterprise? What does that do to your own self-confidence? Give me some comments here. It all, I think, goes up, right? You start to feel better about yourself because you're going, okay, now I understand this. This system is actually working for me. Okay, all right. Then you say what to my counselors, to my Hope Financial counselors? What's next? I've conquered this. Great. That's right. Renard says it boosts your self-esteem and your confidence. And you say, okay, so what next? Okay, what can I do next? And then my counselors say, okay, what's this other item on your credit report? You go, oh, wow, now you're being more comfortable. You're being more honest with my counselors. You're not feeling ashamed because we're not making you feel ashamed. My counselors have told you, look, John Bryant almost filed bankruptcy. John Bryant was homeless. John Bryant had a sub 500 credit score. John Bryant was so poor he was so broke he couldn't pay attention. He was so poor he couldn't afford the OR. He could just PO, right? So if John Bryant can go through this and be redemption, John Bryant can have rainbows after storms, then you can too. And there's nothing wrong. You're not a mistake, which is my quote for this week. You're not a mistake. You just made a mistake. You get that? You're not a mistake. You just made a mistake. And a saint is a sinner that got up. So you can redeem yourself. So then the people say, okay, what next? And then we say, okay, well, what's this item here? Is that yours? Yeah, that was a charge off. I was divorced 10 years ago in Oakland, California. I didn't pay the phone bill for 3 weeks. And talk about student loans. Sharon says, I'll do that in a separate video. My camera doesn't have enough charge for it this time. And I want to break this up into pieces, but I will cover that. Yeah, that was a charge off. I didn't pay the phone bill. It was a $1,000 bill over 3 or 4 months. Everybody was on the phone. We didn't pay it. They cut it off, and we didn't pay it because I got divorced. I moved out of town. They get the notices. It's a charge off. Okay, I see that SBC Communications was bought by Pac Bell. Pac Bell in Oakland was bought by AT&T. AT&T, when they couldn't chase you, sold that debt to Joe's Finance Company. I know it's Joe's Finance Company because it says in the memo, Silver writes, it says in the memo, because it's all public information, that it was sold to Joe's Finance Company. Well, I know Joe's Finance Company buys bad debt, which means they bought it for 5 cents on the dollar. So now you don't owe $1,000. What do you owe now? This is a great math class. You owe $50. And that's what they bought it for. So what do they want from you? They want $100. They want 100% profit, which is fine. Fair exchange is no robbery. You owed $1,000. So we call them because they've been chasing you. Actually, they're looking for you. So we sit down, Ms. Jones, can we call these people? Well, sure. So we call on your behalf with you sitting there. We're not going to call for you. You got to be empowered, all right? It's a hand up, not a handout. Teach a man to fish, not give him one. So we call for you. I have Ms. Jones here. Well, we're looking for her. Okay, well, she's here, right? No big deal. Calm down. She wants to pay you off. Well, that's fantastic. We want $100. Okay. How about we give you $200? Well, why would you want to give me double what I'm asking for? I only asked for $100. Well, we'll pay you $200 because when we pay you $200, I'm going to make you look like a hero before your boss or your shero if you're female. I'm going to make you look good because you're going to have a good day. But in exchange for that, you're going to write a letter to the credit bureaus and tell them that Mrs. Jones has paid her debt current. You're going to wipe her records clean at your office. You're going to write a letter to her that so she's satisfied. You're going to start calling her a bum to all other credit providers, and you're going to treat her with the dignity she respects. And you're going to give me your direct phone line and your cell phone number if necessary, certainly your email address. Are you going to do that? Well, sure, I'll do that. And by the way, in 3 months, once you write that letter to the credit bureaus and it shows that you was clean, and it mysteriously shows up again, once again, you see this, it gets back on your credit report again, an error, that you're going to write another letter to clear it up the second time.